Boxx from Unconventional Business Network. Hey, Rick, would you tell everybody hi?
Hey, hi everyone, and thanks, Mike, for having me on today.
Oh, thank you for doing this. So it's been over a year since we were on the podcast together, and COVID happened during that time, among a bunch of other things. And
Yes,
so I wanted to learn more about what was going on, what was new at Unconventional Business Network. But let's start off by telling people what UBN is and how it got started and how you're involved.
sure. Yeah, well, Unconventional Business Network was started in 2001, and it really came out of my professional life. I was in banking, and I had been introduced to a bank president that I was working for that was unlike any boss I'd ever experienced. He actually would drag out the Bible and point me towards a principle or a proverb or whatever and tell me that was going to be the answer to my problem and go do it. And I was a guy that had been running from Christ for a long time at that stage in my life. And I was a workaholic, and I'm scratching my head going, how's this guy think he's going to run a bank? You know, when he told me his priorities were God was first, his family was second, and his work was third, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But God used him to really grab my attention and to begin seeing the practical nature of the Bible.
Yeah.
And so after I had a dramatic conversion experience after working for this guy, I began searching for, were there any ministries out there that were actually teaching these biblical principles that you could apply to business, as this bank president was doing in a day-to-day basis with me. Couldn't really find very much out there, and by then I had switched banks, and we had decided to sell the small bank that I was helping to run. And during that transition,
Yeah.
as I prayed about it, I just felt God kept saying, well, you keep asking why isn't anybody teaching this stuff? You go do that. And so I jumped in, and originally it was a consulting practice that we used a biblical model out of the book of Nehemiah to help small companies with their planning processes.
Hmm.
And so, Mike, that was, it's hard to believe, but that was over 25 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so looking back, I didn't even realize that God had planted me as a pioneer in this industry of faith at work.
Yeah.
But he did, and so it's been just a fun journey to be able to work with business leaders all around the globe, and just to see what God is trying to do in helping people integrate their faith into the day-to-day work that they do.
No, and it's cool. And I'm as a one who's followed behind you in some of this, I'm excited to see what continues to happen with your organization as well. So bring us up to the current now. When you and I spoke, COVID hadn't begun yet. Mostly up until just a few years ago, most of your format was face-to-face meetings,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, we did a lot of events, especially on a regional basis. And so we would do 3 or 4 major events every year in Kansas City, St. Louis, Des Moines, had some in Tulsa,
Yeah.
and it was all live events. And I remember a little bit before COVID, my wife kept sharing, and she kind of has these feelings or premonitions that I can't really sort out. But she said, you know, we need to be prepared. I think these live events may not always be there in the way that we think they're going to be. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I remember we already had a small group meeting scheduled that we would typically have 25, 30 business leaders locally that would join us. And people had already paid and signed up, and they were getting ready to come when the government told us we couldn't have that meeting.
Hmm.
And so I remember just praying about, well, God, what do we do now? I mean, this could really wreck our business model. This is going to be hard sledding. We don't know how long it's going to last.
Yeah.
And I remember that week, I felt like the Lord was just impressing upon me that the business leaders were going to be reeling from all of this. It was going to be a challenging time, and that we needed to be there for them to be able to provide not only some insight and some lessons from people, but also just some encouragement, and let them know they're not alone in this hard journey that so many of us have gone through in the last year. And so we decided, okay, that event that we were going to do, let's turn it into a virtual event. And I got to tell you, Mike, we didn't have a clue what we were doing on that first one. We looked back at that video and laughed because they literally had a canister video camera shining down on my bald head and people couldn't even see my face. Uh, and it was comical. And I think we had like 39 people that showed up for that first one. And I was stunned that people said, could you do this again next week? We really need this.
Uh-huh.
And so we agreed, okay, let's try it again next week. I invited a speaker that I knew. We ended up having 150 people that showed up the second week, and we had 250 that showed up the third week.
Wow.
And it was just a remarkable transition. And one of the things that came out of that, Mike, was we had a guy from France that went online and made an online donation. And that doesn't happen every day for us. And so I reached out to him and I'm like, so I don't really even know who you are and why you made this donation. And he said, well, Rick, I've been following and reading your daily integrity moments for 10 years. And he said, whenever I saw you were doing these virtual events, it was the first time I could actually plug in with you in a more interactive way. And he said, so I'm all in and I want to, I want to be on every one that I can. And he said, you need to know the impact that your ministry has already had in France. Because he said, I began using your daily devotionals years ago to take them into Catholic businesses and to began showing them that the Word of God was practical. And he said, it started conversations that I would have never dreamed that we could have. And he said, ultimately, what came out of that was they announced me as a regional manager over that Catholic business organization. He said, now I get paid to go into businesses every day and talk about God's word. And he said, I usually bring a lot of your content, or I've used parts of your book to teach. And he said, so you've really had an impact in France, even though you didn't know it. And so we began seeing and hearing stories like that throughout this COVID. And so we were amazed that once we turned and cranked that up, that we've had, I think it's probably over 4,000 people now just since COVID happened that have engaged just through these virtual webinars. And it's just been a remarkable journey to see what looked like a disaster, that God took it and actually flourished and allowed us. We've had over 18 countries that have engaged on our virtual webinars now that never could engage previously.
Very cool. Yeah, it's amazing how small the world got when we all started using video conferencing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what's the schedule now? You have 3 different types of events that you're doing every month now, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah. So what we did is we decided that whenever the live events do come back, that we've now learned the technology side that we can leverage that. And so we can live stream future live events as we start rolling those back out. But we also started seeing that the virtual events were a great ongoing way to introduce people to the ministry and to opportunities for them to engage. And so we began saying, well, let's have what we call a network connect meeting, which is once a month. We're going to have, I think it's the first Thursday of every month. We'll have different speakers on, do a 30-minute interview, and be able to share a lot of different insights from different people, biblical wisdom on how we apply this stuff in our work life. And then my wife has been running our UB Women division for professional women. And she has a virtual event called Faith Forward Conversations. And so she's been hosting that for women to come on the second Thursday of every month. And then we still have City Connects, which we are trying to take back live. Late April is when our tentative schedule is for our first live event. But, we've been doing some of those virtually and hope to live stream those. Actually, we had a planning session today on all the moving parts we need to think about when you add a live stream in to this event. And so, yeah, those 3 different types of events are opportunities that people can plug in with us.
Yeah, and as you're hearing this, that City Connects that will be live, that'll be happening very soon. This will be airing in late April of 2021. So we're recording a little ahead of that.
Yeah, actually, we've got April 22nd. We've got Peter Demos from Nashville, Tennessee, is going to be live with us, but we are going to live stream that for people that want to chime into that. And he's a great leader that runs a chain of restaurants that has amazing stories of practical ways that he's tried to just really bring biblical concepts and principles into how he runs his restaurant chain. And so I think people will really enjoy hearing some of those practical illustrations
Yes.
as to what he does.
Well, that's very cool. You'll be able to find out more about that in the show notes. You'll also be able to find out more about that at unconventionalbusiness.org, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Unconventionalbusiness.org. I should have had my brain tuned into that, but I got there anyway. So check out Rick's website or check out the links below. And as you're hearing this, if you hear this when it goes live, it will just be a few days in between now and when that event occurs. So if you miss that one, then check the next one out because you'll be back doing them every month, correct?
Pretty much, yes, yes.
So and that'll be the City Connects. These, and you do the, some of the weekly ones they're interactive videos as well, right? It's a Zoom meeting, right?
Yes, yes.
So you have interaction with people and you even have breakout sessions in one of them, correct?
Yes, actually, my wife does some breakout sessions for the
ladies.
women, and then some of the City Connects that we do virtually, there's some opportunities for people as well.
Yeah, so you'll be able to connect, but you're not limited. You don't have to just be in the Kansas City or St. Louis or Des Moines area anymore either. That's the coolest thing about video conferencing is we now can get much closer than we used to without going anywhere.
Absolutely.
It's very
Yeah, it's been
exciting.
amazing that it opens up the doors for so many people to be able to
Yeah.
plug in any way they
And
want.
you said 4,000 people this year, huh?
Yes. Yeah, so it's had a big reach in a lot of different countries, and it's been fun to see people chime in and hear their stories as to what God's doing in their life.
Yeah. Well, those are great stories. So what do you think, what are you planning to do next with Unconventional Business? Like, I'm sure the first response is, Mike, isn't that enough? I mean, we're very busy right now, but what are some other ideas that are going on?
Yeah, Mike, a few years back, we made a transition brand wise, and you probably recall we used
Mhm.
to be Integrity Resource Center.
Yeah.
And after our 15th year anniversary for the ministry, I went away on a prayer retreat and just really felt God leading me towards something new as far as things that He wanted us to do. And the key thing out of that, as we changed the name to Unconventional Business Network, the network piece was a key component of it. I felt
Mhm.
like God was sharing with us that we had been content creators and providers for many years and have had a lot of great content, but people learn best oftentimes in community.
Mhm.
And we started realizing we really need to do a better job of having groups, not only like the big events that we have that people can come and feel like they're part of the community, and that's
Yeah.
helpful, but the smaller group opportunities as well. And so along the way, in the last couple of years, we started rolling out 3 different types of groups. And now COVID disrupted those, but we're now kind of rolling those back out. We brought
Good.
a new person on staff to really help us ramp that up. But we have what we call our Unconventional Business Forum groups. And those groups are for business leaders, regardless of what role they serve. They don't have to be a business owner or anything,
Mhm.
like that. And they have really high quality video training content that we have some great speakers from the Christian community, the great business leaders that are sharing some wonderful insight. And so those are designed so anybody can facilitate one of those groups, pop in a 20-minute video that we
Very
provide,
cool.
download some discussion questions, and then facilitate that conversation. And so we're really trying to ramp those up and to do those in different places and locations. Then my wife has the UB Women's side, and so she's wanting to do some forums as well for the women. And so she chastised me for having a whole lot of men in these videos and not enough women. And so she has selected some women that are going to swap out some of the videos and have really an offering that is more suitable for professional women. And so she's starting to roll out those groups. And then finally, the third group is our roundtables. We really felt like the small business owners oftentimes get overlooked in how they can have peers that they can meet with on a regular basis, that they're learning how to do business God's way, and they're improving and enhancing their business. And so we have monthly meetings that are usually 3 to 4 hours a month for 8 to 12 business owners that they can meet. They can have a business performance lesson. So we want them to do well in business. We think that's the best way to evangelize, is if you're really doing well and people ask the question, wow, how are you so different?
Yeah.
And how are you doing so well? And so we teach them on, marketing and sales and finance and human resources and all those areas, but we do it through a biblical worldview. And so that monthly lesson plan helps these people really grow and learn in how to build and grow their business. But they also have a time of roundtable discussion with the group, because, everybody has a problem of the month that they're fighting in business, and they can bring that to the group. And there's always somebody in the group that's been there and done that once before. And so the group can start helping them how to navigate some of those challenges. And so we're real excited about those roundtable groups. It just really enables business leaders. And we've heard great testimonies already from people in our groups as to how they've been able to grow their business and have a confidence that they're doing it in a way that honors God.
Very cool. And links to all these resources will be in the show notes. You can find all of this at unconventionalbusiness.org.
Yes.
It's cool to see all the different things that you're doing. And it's a fun time now, because it seems like Christians in the marketplace, many of us are looking for this kind of thing.
Yes.
Many of the people listening to this podcast are too. That's kind of how we found you. So if you'd be interested in these types of things, I wanted you to know about the Unconventional Business Network. Rick's been a big help to me over the years, and just trying to help me figure out what it is that we're trying to do at Follower of One. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, Rick. It's really cool to see the growth of your ministry and how you managed to kind of pivot. It's a word everybody's using anymore in COVID. And so it's cool.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Mike, for having me on here and for all that you're doing at Follower of One. I think you have such a unique concept that it's a lot of fun to see people be able to engage with you in that journey and to give thought. I mean, because we do have so many people that think about from church of going overseas and doing mission trip. And if we can help them really open their eyes to say, well, wait a minute, do I have to go overseas?
Yeah.
Can't I have a mission field right here in my own backyard where I'm already planted?
Yeah. So, well, I'm excited about the things that are happening, both for both of our ministries and also for the people listening. And so, thank you for being on the podcast, Rick. And I want to thank the listeners too. Check out unconventionalbusiness.org and Rick's ministry, because there's really cool things happening there. And it's entirely possible that you're listening to this because you need to be involved. So go check out Rick's ministry at unconventionalbusiness.org. Thanks, Rick, for doing this. I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mike. It's been fun and enjoyable, and I appreciate all that you're doing for the Faith at Work movement.
All right. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for listening to the Follower of One podcast. You can check us out, and you can check more out about this at followerofone.org.